To begin with, focus on health law. This is a presentation of attorney and counselor at law, Mr. Kenneth Haber. Attorney Haber practices internationally, but his headquarters is located in Boyds, Maryland. Here on this set, our chief attorney at the Khurana law firm is attorney Ramesh Khurana. He has a whole bunch of questions for attorney Haber on Hipaa Audit Phase 2. This will interest us physicians and even our non-physician friends. It's always good to keep updated with rules and regulations in this innovative world of medicine.
Welcome to our show. This is Ramesh Khurana, attorney at law. I have my office in Gaithersburg, Maryland, and today I am really privileged to welcome attorney Kenneth Haber. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you, Ramesh.
He is the most experienced and knowledgeable attorney I have ever met in my practice. Earlier he used to be
kind.
No, really, I am telling you from the bottom of my heart. And he makes things very clear whenever you talk to him. And I always seek guidance from him in regard to Hipaa and High-Tech Act. Now, today, in fact, I am going to ask you some questions about Hipaa Audit Phase 2. First of all, tell me, why is it called Phase 2?
Hipaa Phase 2 is because of the fact they're now enforcing Hipaa. Previously, they were in an educational mode. Now, because of the High-Tech Act, Congress is now requiring Health and Human Services that administers the...
And you are a senior attorney in the Office of Health and Human Services.
Well, I was a senior attorney in the Office of Inspector General of the United States Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay. Great.
They have other senior
There's so
attorneys.
many other, that's true. Okay, now what is Hipaa and what is High-Tech Act?
Okay, well, Hipaa is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And the reason why that was enacted is because we were getting into the computer age. And more information.
We are already there into the computer.
That's right. Well, this act's been around for a while now.
Right.
Hipaa.
Okay. So now they are moving to phase 2 in the high tech.
Now through high tech, Congress is getting serious and saying we need Hipaa enforced, and we want it enforced by audits, desk audits, and on-site audits, so that people are complying with the requirements of Hipaa, which establishes privacy, establishes when disclosure can be made, provides for accounting of breaches, accounting of disclosures, lawful disclosures, and most people don't realize all that's involved in Hipaa, and they're going to because of high tech. High tech is requiring the enforcement of Hipaa by these audits, and there will be fines and have been fines imposed, and I'm sure that they're lesser now, and in the future there'll be more as people are expected to be more aware of the responsibilities they have under these programs.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ken, for explaining to us phase 2 of Hipaa and also the High-Tech Act. Now, please explain to us what are some of the purposes of these two acts?
Well, they're there to help protect the information that's being required by our healthcare system, and ensuring that there will be privacy and ensuring that there will be accountability. And with all the hacking going on, you know, it's a good thing that there is some incentive for people to take their responsibility seriously. Some things are very simple that people can do. You know, for most situations, it's not going to be somebody sitting at a desk across some ocean that's coming into a doctor's office and doing something nasty via the internet. You know, most of the time it's going to be, you know, some disgruntled employee or somebody who by chance has had access to and will misuse information there.
It happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
Yes.
And so it's a matter of making sure that there's proper cybersecurity in place that would prevent people from illegally gaining access to and illegally using the information that is collected by doctors' offices and hospitals. This is immense information because Social Security numbers are involved, dates of birth, and all the other type of things that if you want to create I forgot the term when you're impersonating a person, identity theft. If you want to do identity theft, you get the information from a doctor's office, and you can start doing identity theft very easily. And that's why Congress anticipated this problem and created the Hipaa law. And then they realized that people weren't honoring the Hipaa law, so then they passed the high-tech law requiring enforcement of Hipaa.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ken. Identity theft is a very big problem. We know that even IRS has not been spared, and billions of dollars, these are stolen by filing returns by impersonators.
Yes.
Just based on the ID theft. So it's a very serious issue.
It is.
It's a very serious issue. And perhaps you might have read in the paper that one investment banker has sued the law firm because their email system was hacked by hackers, and they got hold of some information which they used to withdraw millions of dollars from the investment banker's account. Now they are claiming damages. So it's very important, especially when we are talking about personal medical information, which should be protected by the medical providers.
That's absolutely correct, because of the fact they have this warehouse, storage of your personal information. Who's going to have more personal information about you other than your
Medical
physician,
providers.
your medical provider?
I agree with you. Now, you did talk about audits, like earlier there was a kind of desk audit, now it's an on-site visit and audit. So what types of audits are there?
Well, there's the desk audit and the on-site audit. Those are the two that are defined currently by HHS Office of Civil Rights, which has the responsibility of enforcing HIPAA and high-tech. I'm sure that they're hiring contractors to do it because that's a relatively small office there itself, and all government agencies are enforcing things through government contractors.
Now let us talk about business associates in the area of healthcare professionals. So what is a business associate agreement, and who is business associate as to the healthcare professionals?
Well, the business associate is in fact just that. It's some associate of a doctor's office, a healthcare practice, hospital that is fulfilling some of the functions of that healthcare entity. And what the law requires is that there be a business associate contract that imposes the same duties upon that business associate as that healthcare entity has. So there has to be a contract. If you don't have a contract, a proper contract, then you as a healthcare entity are violating HIPAA because of the fact that there's supposed to be accountability. If there's breaches in that business associate, that has to be reported upstream so that the patient will become aware of it. There's disclosures, even lawful disclosures. They're supposed to keep a recordation of that disclosure so that there's an accountable type of situation. All the requirements and the duties that the healthcare entity has are supposed to be passed down to the business associate.
This is very, very interesting, Ken. Now, we did talk about the contract between a doctor and a patient. Now, you recommended that every healthcare provider should have a good contract with the patient. Now, the question is, when the contract is executed, it defines rights and obligations of both the parties. Now, under the contract, a doctor is liable to the patient in terms of those provisions. Now, how does that medical provider or doctor make sure that if he is passing on part of the medical process or service to an associate, he makes sure that those terms and conditions provided or set forth in the contract are really taken care of here?
Yes, the doctor has to make sure and has a responsibility to make sure that his business associates are credible and that they're honoring the contract provisions that comply with the HIPAA and the High-Tech Act. And if he doesn't make sure of that, if he's negligent in that regard, he could, he could be fined. He can be sanctioned by the agency. The interesting thing is HIPAA in of itself is not currently a self-enforcing mechanism, which means that you as the patient, you can't go and sue the doctor currently for violating your HIPAA rights. You can report them to the agency, the Office of Civil Rights, and they can impose very stiff fines, and they have imposed very stiff fines.
So that means there's no private right to sue?
There's not Congress never created a private right to sue under it. However, I can see that in the future, that enterprising attorneys will say that this is part of the standard of care that a healthcare provider owes to his patient in his professional contract and claim it's malpractice not to do that. And I can see where some courts will say, yes, it's malpractice not to handle the information properly, et cetera, so you let the breach occur, now you're responsible for the breach. But it's just not currently, it's not in the statute, and it's not currently in the statute, never was in the statute, but like I say, I can certainly see some enterprising attorney who would, make such a claim as a standard of care.
It's something like that. If you cannot sue a person under the contract, then you try to find certain causes of actions under the quasi-contract, like self-enrichment. If nothing works, right? Yeah. So it's exactly the same kind of right you are talking about.
That's right. That's right. People historically created rights that didn't exist by standard of care.
Standard of care, yeah, that's right. Now, let's talk about compliance efforts. So what type of compliance efforts can you take and should you take as a physician practice? Because I think this compliance part is so important and so dear to the heart of a physician.
It is. While there's not currently a right of action against you by your patient, in the future I can see where the courts will be granting that, or granting that you breached a fiduciary duty. Some other sort of construct that incorporates that concept that the doctor has that obligation for the patient. And if not, you still face very stiff fines from the Office of Civil Rights.
Right.
And those could
So
easily
you mean
be.
that Department of Justice?
No, Office of Civil Rights of Department of Health and Human Services
okay.
have this task assigned to them.
Okay.
I assume that is because of the fact that the whole concept was around the privacy right, so they decided that the Office of Civil Rights would enforce the privacy of patients.
Okay. Now, I think you have beautifully explained about it. Now tell us something about training and security clearance of staff.
Well,
how you can make sure that you establish certain procedures which will take care of all these kinds of issues.
as a healthcare provider, you have to make sure your staff is not on the exclusion list, so that's one thing you have to make sure.
So that's part of the hiring process.
Part of the hiring, and
it continues
on.
So you have to check background
And
information on a regular
You
basis.
need to check it
Right.
on a regular basis, and there's firms out there that you can hire to do that in an economic fashion.
For
that
a
check-
nominal
fee.
Yeah.
You check their status on exclusion, and it should be monthly you're checking this.
Right. And I have seen when you are talking about using these third parties to have the background information checked, because they have developed some system and they make sure they are complying with laws, and they will take all permissions from the people, whatever are required under the law, so that employer is not charged or doctor is not charged that he did the background check without proper authorization. So that way, that's the benefit of paying a small amount and let this job be done by a professional company.
Yes, and they could do not only the exclusion background, but the criminal background, and it's just should be standard operating procedure for any sort of business to make sure that there's not some sort of crook in the rooster house, in the hen house.
Wonderfully. You have beautifully elucidated all my doubts and points, and I really thank you very much for coming from all the way Maryland to this studio and answering our questions. I'm pretty sure that our audience has been immensely benefited.
I appreciate
Thank you
being
so
here.
much.
Thank you.